Well, good afternoon, everybody, and happy Friday, and welcome to our webinar today, What's New in Creo 4.0. My name is Rob Romanowski. I'm the Director of Operations for 3HTI. We have been a reseller with PTC for the past 14 years, and I've actually been with 3HTI for over 6 years, and it's really been an awesome past 6 years, especially with a lot of the technology that we handle as a reseller, not just for some of our other partners, but specifically with PTC. I think I mean this with a lot of conviction and from the heart that I think that Creo is absolutely the best CAD modeling software in the space because of its capabilities and what it does, especially for its pricing. So what we're going to do today was we're joined by Andrew Harrison, who is a applications engineer for PTC. And Andrew is going to give us a walk through some of the capabilities within Creo 4.0. Now, everybody is going to be on mute during the presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to type them into the questions box in the dashboard. Before we get started, I do have a quick question I want to ask everybody, if you can answer this, just to get an idea of our audience today. What version of Wildfire or Creo are you currently using? Are you currently using Creo 3.0 or 4.0? Do you have the first couple releases of Creo? Do you go back to Wildfire 4 or 5? You go back to something even earlier than Wildfire, or are you currently not using Creo or Pro Engineer at this time? So the votes are coming in. We appreciate this, guys. Okay. So I'm going to close this poll. So thanks everyone for voting. For giving us that feedback. We appreciate it. So before I turn everything over to Andrew, I just want to give you guys a quick overview about 3HTI, and also I mentioned that I mentioned in the emails that I sent out that there's a couple of incentives from PTC that we're working with them to offer to June 30th. So one of the things that a little bit about 3HTI. I mean, we're basically in the business of ultimately helping people live better lives. If we can help you do your job better and innovate your products better, hopefully that's going to help you drive more revenue, increase your profitability, and also put a little more time, give you a little more time so that you can do some of the things that you want to do, whether you spend it with your family or have some, time to do some fun or some other interests. That's ultimately the goal, is to help solve problems and help you do your job better, and ultimately get to market faster. So we offer, not only are we a reseller for PTC, but we also offer various solutions with additive manufacturing, with engineering solutions, whether it's with design, analysis, or machining. We also do certified training on PTC solutions, as well as handling software maintenance support for PTC solutions. Now, within our product portfolio, we do handle the whole portfolio of PTC solutions, but we also handle analysis solutions from Mentor Graphics for CFD, as well as machining solutions from Multi-DNC and NC Simul. We are a reseller for Keyshot, which is a tremendous rendering software. Solid Thinking also is a product. One of the products that we represent from them, called Inspire, is an awesome optimization tool for modeling, especially for 3D printing. Really helps to optimize designs, which there is a Lattice capability within Creo 4.0 that you're going to see today that's similar to Solid Thinking. As well as with 3D printers, we represent Markforged and EnvisionTech. Markforged being the only 3D printer that prints in continuous carbon fiber, and EnvisionTech has the highest precision among 3D printers in the space today, and they also offer bioplotters for printing out structures to create organs and other types of biomaterials. Some of our customers include NASA's been a long time customer of ours. Murata Controls. I mean, here's a whole list. It's almost like the who's who of companies of who to do business with in technology. But I think the point is that because we do a lot with many different diverse types of companies, we've seen a lot, and they all have different types of problems. So we've seen a lot. We're pretty flexible. So whatever the issues are that our customers have, we're pretty equipped to help solve those issues. So real quick, just to review the offers this quarter from PTC that end June 30th. If you are currently a customer that has let your maintenance lapse for more than 12 months, then you qualify to be able to convert that maintenance, which is a perpetual license, to a subscription license. And the annual subscription savings is up to 25% annually on those licenses. Also, there's no reinstatement fees or any back support that needs to be paid when doing this program. So basically to go from, if you have an older version of Wildfire and say you've been off maintenance for 8 years, it would not make sense for you to pay the back maintenance to get current. But if you wanted to upgrade to Creo 3.0 or 4.0, the cost for you annually would be $2,100 annually, as opposed to the normal subscription price of $2,700 annually. And that is just the example for the Creo Essentials package. So it will also be based on what package that you currently have and what you would convert to for subscription. The other incentive being offered this quarter is for Creo. Basically, you can upgrade to any Creo package at a 35% discount. And this is not just for the Essentials packages, but also the Creo engineering packages. This also covers these upgrades are also available for if you have a perpetual license or a subscription license. You're eligible for those upgrades. And also these extensions that are added can be advanced assembly. You can have piping and cabling. When you get into the higher end engineering packages, you can add interactive surface design, and it's all a 35% discount. So if you're interested in this, you can reply to the email that I sent. That I sent to you guys originally to invite you to this email, or you can contact us at info@3hti.com or right here, and I'll flash this up at the end of the webinar. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to pass everything over to Andrew Harrison. So Andrew, I appreciate you being on today.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. So now you should have control.
All right, let me make sure that I'm sharing the correct monitor here.
I see the PTC logo.
Yep, and can you see Creo Parametric now?
Yes, we do.
Fantastic.
The P-Bot.
So hi everyone, my name is Andrew Harrison. I'm an application engineer with PTC, and it's my pleasure today to introduce you to Creo 4.0, so our newest release. And we've added a lot of nice new enhancements in here that I'd like to step through. I won't be able to cover everything. Usually between new release, I'll usually add in about 500 new enhancements. So I've kind of handpicked a couple that I think might interest you to walk through. So taking a look around, if you're on a Creo today, Creo 2, Creo 3, UI is very similar. So we haven't, at a base level, just looking at it, it's not overwhelming. It's not that big of a jump going from Creo 2 or 3 onto Creo 4, but there's a lot of new functionality embedded in, even just full customization. So real quick, just looking at the UI here, I can fully customize the ribbon, the access toolbars, the shortcuts, even now keyboard shortcuts. So if you have a lot of map keys, you can actually offset some of them by just adding in these keyboard shortcuts now for anything within Creo. So stuff like that has been added in just at the UI level. Now, Even how you interact with the model is vastly different in Creo 4 compared to Creo 3. So here I have this robot up, and if I just zoom in and select on a component, just a left click, I can now get this pop-up toolbar. And this pop-up toolbar gives me commands such as how to activate or open this part individually, or I can go right in and edit definition. So before it was a right click and I had to go through another menu. So right now, just pop-up toolbar, and this works at an assembly level, at a part level, works when you're activating a datum plane and want to sketch off of that. You can even see I can directly come in and start extruding, so I don't have to activate the component first and then go up and say I'd like to extrude or create a sketch. I can do that directly off of a single click now. So if we wanted to design, see we have this robot here and we have this nice arm, but we really don't have the base plate here. So if we want to design the base plate, we can walk through part modeling in Creo 4 and some of the new capabilities there. So let's start building out this base plate and also turn on my datum plane to sketch here. The new enhancement we added in Creo 4 is full screen mode. So either by hitting F11 or the bottom left here, you can now activate a full screen mode. And what this does is it gives you a wider range within your graphics window to work off of. Now your toolbars are still there if you need it, so just moving my mouse up, my toolbars will fly in, and same with my model tree. But I don't need to leverage them as often in Creo 4, and I can showcase that here. So let's start sketching out here. I'll select the datum plane and say let's extrude off of that. Now I'm working within an assembly building a part, and it's kind of in the middle of my assembly, so I might get a little confused here. What I can do is I can actually clip the model directly to that sketch plane and then work off of it that way. So clipping is now new in Creo 4, and now I can start working mostly off of my right mouse button. So I have sketch tools embedded in here, and I can start sketching. Now I'm in an assembly mode. Maybe I want to reference things. So I have this axis here that I'd like to sketch on, and we have this new ability called snapping in Creo 4. So I can reference on the fly by snapping to pre-existing geometry. So another new enhancement within Creo 4. And again, as I want to come down, if I want to work off of this, I get, it's a little difficult to see, but I get the leader coming down, a little dotted line showing me I'm coming straight down at 90 degree there. And I can snap to this bottom component here. I can make these tangent if I'd like, snap them on there. So vastly faster to sketch within Creo 4 and get my design intent across and being able to reference on the fly. If I want to clean up the sketch now, I have a segment I like to delete. I don't have that off my right mouse button, so what I can do is just fly up my toolbar and grab that and clean up the model. So let me just change my dimensions here. That looks pretty good. So now we'd like to extrude that. And again, this full screen mode, not having to rely on my UI ribbon as often, allows me this better graphics window so that I can really understand what I'd like to get in my design. And if I need them, I just have them fly in. Now, not a new enhancement, but something that a lot of people know about is if I wanted to say, pull this and have it line up exactly with this washer over here, I just hold down my shift key as I drag and I can snap it directly to a surface. So something that we've had, but not a lot of utilization there. So a little shortcut key holding that shift to snap. What is new though is I can actually drive extrusions now in a second direction. So I can say, you know, extrude this distance to this washer, but let's drive it in a second direction, say a set dimension as well. So being able to drive extrudes in two separate directions. That looks pretty good. And then we'll also mirror that across. So again, we just built a part fairly quickly there without really relying on the ribbon UI except for a delete segment, being able to utilize that full screen mode. Now, let me also open up this component to showcase some more tools that we added in here. So if we wanted to, say, take this base plate and build upon it, maybe we want to give it some more strength in the center here. So maybe we want to create another extrusion between these two boss cutouts here. If we look at this datum plane though, it's not really centered because these are slanted. So I would probably want to create my extrusion off of something more centered. What I'm able to do now in Creo 4 is select a datum reference and then another surface reference and create a midplane between them. So I can create a midplane datum plane between two references selected, and then utilize that as where I would like to create my extrusion. Now, we have a lot of nice sketching tools that I like to utilize, such as the center rectangle. And what I'm able to do in Creo 4 is we've really driven home full customization. So what I can do is off my right mouse button, I can actually customize what I would like to be there every time. So if you have tools you're constantly using, even if they're not just sketch tools, any type of tools within Creo, you can customize and add them to your right mouse button. So I can just search for it, center rectangle, and I can just drag it where I would like it. Now I already have center rectangle there, so I won't add it again, but that's just how simple it is to add that. And then you can save that with your configuration, so it always loads in with Creo. Now I can use that, so center rectangle here, using that new snapping functionality in Creo 4 as well to quickly create that. And again, holding shift, I'm going to align it with this slanted surface here. And then I'll drive that in the second direction as well. So what's really nice about being able to extrude in two different directions is it's saving a feature. If I wanted to do that before, I would have to create two separate features in order to do that. Well, now I can do that in one. Another one we've added too is the ability not just to drive to a set dimension or to a selected surface, but now we can actually offset off of that as well. So I can say, you know, let's drive to the surface, but let's keep an offset, maybe a 1/4 inch offset off of that. So now if you want to think about it, we were able to, in one feature, create and extrude in two separate directions with a negative offset in both those directions as a single feature. Whereas before, that would become 4 features. So really in Creo 4, we're able to design and get our intent across faster with less features in the model tree. And lastly, what I want to point out in Creo 4, just for part modeling and sketching, is we've added the functionality for box select. So being able to drag from left to right and also from right to left. And it gives you different functionality for each. So let me explain. If you drag from left to right, anything fully enclosed within that box will be selected. If you drag from right to left, it's whatever the box touches will be selected. So the ability to box select works at part level, it works at an assembly level, just all capabilities within Creo. So the ability to box select is something really nice that I'm excited about in Creo 4. So quickly and around that feature. So that's a little bit of how you would model and how you would interact with the model in Creo 4. And as you can see, it's very different than even previous versions of Creo. I think they did a really nice job of highlighting what a lot of users were looking for in a tool, especially because something like part modeling is something that happens quite often in the design process. Now, transitioning here, as Rob stated, we've also added in 3D printing capabilities into Creo 4. We had a little bit in Creo 3 with being able to connect to 3D printers and do a little bit of verification in Creo 4, in Creo, and we've enhanced that in Creo 4, but we've also added new abilities such as being able to create lattice design. So you can see in this robot here, actually part of the arm is this lattice structure that we created using the new lattice feature. And I'll go through how we do that. So for an example here, we have these grippers, and these are solid parts, probably 3D printed or some type of plastic injection molding. And maybe we want to reduce the weight of these, use less material, but I still need to maintain a certain strength here. So what I can do is open these up and take a look and say, you know what? I think I could replace this centerpiece here with a lattice instead. So what I'll do first is let's take a look at the current weight of this model, and then we'll take a look at what the weight is after the fact that I added a lattice there. So let's just take a look at the mass properties real quick. See the mass 2.64. Okay, so let's see if we can cut that down a little bit. So I'll come in here and just blow out this centerpiece. And instead, I'll replace that with our lattice, which is located under the engineering dropdown lattice structure. So what I need to do in order to create this lattice is define the bounding box for which I want to create the lattice within. So I'll grab the intent surface for the inside here, and then also the bottom and top. So defining that box area for which I want my lattice in. You can see we get this orange dynamic preview of what that lattice structure is going to look like. Now I have the ability to scale that, so I can scale this down if I'd like. And then we can take a look before we accept it of what that would look like. So a very complex lattice here, 3D lattice we just built in there. There's some things maybe we want to change. You can see I have some dangling beams here that are probably unwanted. So I can go change that. Under the cell dropdown, I have full control over these. So just the cell shape, such as if I want a triangle instead of a square or a hexagon. Also the parameter dimensions for these in the X, Y, Z. And then down here, we also have the different horizontal and vertical beams. So I can say remove any dangling beams, and maybe I don't want any in the horizontal or vertical direction too. We can update that and take a look. So having full control over how I want to design that is really critical, and we've given you that ability. Now, we can design in 3D and also in 2D. So if you want something a little more simple here, we can look at a 2D, and we can drive that 2D in X, Y, Z direction so we can see what that looks like. Take a look. So maybe something a little more simple. And again, we have different versions. So the rectangle, quasi-radial, and so forth. And then we also have, again, the cell drop down here for square, triangle, hexagon, and their parameters. With the 2D, we also have the ability to add drain holes. So this is really critical because if you're creating a solid 3D printed part and you want to create the lattice structure on the internal aspect of it, part of 3D printing is you need support material during the build process so that it won't fail and the 3D print material won't collapse under itself. So that's why you use support material. But after the fact, you usually put it into a bath to remove all the support material. Well, if you have an internal lattice that requires support material during the build process, but it's fully solid and enclosed, how do you drain that support material out? So you can add drain holes directly into the model here, and you can see it actually builds those out for you. So having that ability is really nice for the design as well. So let's go back to the 3D here. Let me take a look, make sure that's what we want. Okay, looks good. So we'll accept that off. So that's how you build a lattice structure in Creo 4. Fairly straightforward there. And then we can take a look at the analysis again, look at the mass properties. And we went from 2.64 down to 1.74. So a good drop in weight there. Now, if you wanted to, you could drive this further. You could take this in the simulation. You could analyze this. And you could even go for an optimization study because this lattice structure here has parameter input. So it's fully dimensioned. You can actually optimize the dimensions within this lattice structure as well. So kind of just to go through a little short example of that, you can add new material. So you can add material to this. In Creo 4, we have a new Granta design library. Adds a lot more materials to select out of the box for simulation in Creo 4. So I can add material, and then I can come in to simulate here, and I can simulate this. So maybe I want to add my constraints where I'd fix it, add my force to this. This is a gripper, so force on the actual surface for which it would grip is important. I can change what force I'm using. and define it in the XYZ direction. And then I can go and do an analysis study. Now, something we've also thought about is these lattices are fairly complex in nature for a simulation analysis, so timing might take a little longer. So what you have the ability to do in this lattice is actually come back and edit that and go from full geometry to a simplified version. And what that does is just create the beam elements for that. So if you went into simulation for it, you could speed up the time that it would take to actually run an analysis for that. So let me just run one real quick here, take a look at the results. And now this is going to run fairly quickly. So you're able to go from design, throughput, into simulation, and then take a look at the results there. You can see maybe we want to beef up certain areas of this due to our results from simulation, but you have the ability to go back and modify this as need be. Now, the other aspect is not just adding in this lattice for 3D printing, but actually able to directly 3D print from Creo 4. So let me modify this back to full geometry and then jump into the 3D printing aspect. So when you have a model and you want to 3D print it, you just say File, Print, and down here we have options for 3D printing and also Order for 3D print. Ordering for 3D print would take this model from Creo 4 and actually send it directly to printing websites such as Shapeway and allow you to order the print from there. Or if you have printers in-house, then you can go to Prepare for 3D printing. And that's going to kick you in to your envelope and creating your tray for the 3D printer. If you need to add printers, so right here, there's generic out of the box, and then you can also add one. So Greensburg, Pennsylvania is a location where PTC has our printers, and I can directly connect to that. How you do that is under Options for Additive Manufacturing. You can manage the 3D printers. So here's where you can add them. So here's the Greensburg one with the IP address. You can just add a new one. We have support for Stratus and also 3D systems, and that allows for some additional capabilities such as directly printing to them, and then also adding surface finish and defining colors within Creo Parametric. But if you have any other type of 3D printer, you can still work with that envelope space and do validation checks within Creo 4. Then you just have to create an STL file and send that to the printer instead. But that's how you would set up a printer. Once it's here, we can define it in that envelope tray. So again, I'm working off of the Greensburg printer, so this is our envelope space. I can have Creo auto position that for me. If I want to create multiple, then I can just say, hey, let's pattern that out and define how many of those I'd like it to 3D print. Now I've purposely overlaid these just to show that we have global interference detection within this. So before you 3D print, you can make sure that none of the parts are touching, which clearly they are here. If they are, we'll position those for you so they aren't. You also have printability validation checks. So this is going to look at minimum wall thickness and also tolerance. Make sure the model is not going to fail during print. And this would be driven by the capabilities of your printer and the accuracy of your printer. But again, good things to know while you're still in the design tool so that you can change them before you actually go to print. Because there's nothing worse than waiting 10, 12 hours for a print to come out just to realize that it's failed because of minimum wall thicknesses. Now I have to go beef this up a bit and then go print it again. So once that's all complete, and again, if you have a Stratus or 3D systems, you can add surface finish, define different colors for this as well. And now we can go preview that 3D print. So within this window, we're going to look at the support material display, get an idea of what and how much that'll look like. You can also clip the model. Take a look at how it's going to do that. And then again, if you have a Stratus printer, you can directly print from here. Now, if you don't, you can still have this tray set up. You have your envelope space. And when you're ready to 3D print, what you would do is instead say File, Save As, change your file type to an STL, and then check this box for custom export. And what that's going to allow you to do is define the chord height and angle control, which are critical inputs for your 3D printer. So once that's done, then you have your STL file, and then you go take that to the printer to print. But that's our integration with 3D printing in Creo 4. I hope you really like that. We're pretty excited about the lattice structure and what we're able to do. The next thing I want to do is kind of switch gears for a bit and talk about flexible modeling. So flexible modeling is something that we started in Wildfire 5, and we've continued to mature that through Creo. And then within Creo 4, we've added new functionality. So flexible modeling now supports sheet metal in Creo 4. A little background if you're not too familiar with flexible modeling. So flexible modeling is an extension that we offer, and what it allows you to do is directly edit the geometry. So what's different about that is it's direct modeling compared to parametric modeling, where in parametric modeling you're driving by dimensions and you're creating parent-children relationships by referencing. Say I want to create a hole, I have to reference an edge and how far that dimension is to the center of the hole from the edge, so you create those relationships. Direct modeling is just purely looking at the geometry. So you're able to manipulate it faster, but there's not as much intent behind it. Why we have that in Creo Parametric is because there's some areas where a parametric modeling tool falls a little flat or it kind of slows down or becomes a little more complicated, such as when you're working with non-native CAD files. If I were to bring a file in from SolidWorks per se, a lot of that information doesn't come over. You just get an import feature. You don't get the whole model tree. So how do I make modifications to that? Well, a direct modeling tool where it's just looking at geometry is the answer. Another area is if I want to simplify a model down for analysis, I don't really want to go through and have to worry about all the parent-children relationships I've created. I just want to remove rounds and simplify a part down. So again, that direct modeling is the key. So in Creo 4, we focused our efforts on embedding that in with with sheet metal. Sheet metal reacts a little different. You always need to maintain a constant thickness. So it took a little longer, but we now have the ability to use flexible modeling in sheet metal. So let me show you an example of that. If we open up, say, the side track here, and maybe we have another team who's working in SolidWorks, or maybe we have a legacy data that we'd like to make. Maybe this is a newer robot, but this track system is kind of something we built off of from previous examples in past years of robots. So maybe I want to assemble the old track system we have here. I can come in here and look at a SolidWorks part and grab that side guard. Now I have the ability to import that over and also open natively. So in Creo 3 and Creo 4, we can actually natively open SolidWorks NX and CATIA parts. The benefit is there's no translation of data. That data is going to come over cleaner, and it's actually going to stay as native SolidWorks. So I'll bring over that side guard and assemble that in. And taking a look at it now, it doesn't exactly fit our current design. It kind of needs to be a little longer. Maybe there's some things in here that we used in the past that really don't apply. So maybe I need to defeature this a bit. But that becomes an issue because this is a SolidWorks part, and I don't have a model tray. I just have this SolidWorks ID 40. So how do I do that? Flexible modeling is the key there. So what I'll do, this isn't even, if you look at it, this is a sheet metal part. This is how I manufacture it, but it doesn't understand that because it came over from SolidWorks. That kind of information didn't come with it. If I activate it, it's looking at part modeling here. I don't have any of my sheet metal tools. So what I have the ability to do though is say, hey, let's convert that to sheet metal. When I do that, Creo asks real quick, hey, what you want to do doesn't reflect the native model. Do you just want to convert that to Creo? So I can say, okay. I can do an automatic conversion or advanced conversion tool. The advanced would allow me to rename it. So if I have my own naming convention, I'm getting parts from a supplier, then I can do that. I'm just going to keep it on automatic here. Now what it's going to do is automatically convert that over to a Creo part. So there it is. And now you can see actually it's a different icon than what it was before. And now what I have the ability to do is say, hey, let's convert that to sheet metal. Simple conversion, I just need to define the driving surface. And now I have a sheet metal part. Creo understands it's sheet metal, and I have all my sheet metal tools. And up here you can see the flexible modeling tab. So here's where I have the ability to make geometric edits to the model. So maybe if I want to say extend this out, I can grab some of the surfaces here and I'll say move. And I get my 3D dragger. I can actually reposition that where I like it, so I can linearly move that in a specific direction, say a set distance. Now let's open this and do a little more to it. So again, this is flexible modeling on a sheet metal part. Utilizing things like box select. Maybe I have these 3 icons here, and what I want to do is extend that out. So I just extended the front here. Maybe I want to keep that consistent throughout. So I can recognize, hey, there's 3 of these. It was probably built with the pattern. That kind of information, though, doesn't exist in my model tree today. Well, I can build that kind of intelligence back in. I can say, hey, this is a pattern. There's 3 of them. I just extended the front here. I want there to be a 4th. Let me actually edit this pattern and add that 4th instance in. So now I'm manipulating the geometry for a current design. I could do that as well to this other aspect here, this cutout. I can say, you know, let's keep that consistent as well. And maybe we don't really need some of these features too. So this guy back here, maybe I just need 2 of those so I can remove one and defeature that down. So that's kind of how flexible modeling works. We've added specific enhancements for this again with sheet metal in mind. So bends and corner reliefs are something that are really critical to sheet metal. So you can actually recognize those. So I can come in here and say, hey, Creo, recognize all the bends. I can either manually go select them or have the system pick them up for me. So it found 5 different bends and it added them to a design object tree. So now I have my 5 bends here that I could go edit. And I could also do that for bend reliefs. So I could say, you know, pick up the 8 bend reliefs in this part and add them to my tree as well. And now I can come edit them as I need. So maybe I want to edit one of these bends. I can come in here and edit that as need be. And maybe a relief as well is something I'd like to come edit. So let me zoom in on this guy here. It's currently a rip. I can change that just like I would a normal sheet metal part I'm building from scratch. I have all the same commands here for editing that relief and sheet metal. So that's flexible modeling, and that's flexible modeling in Creo 4 working on a sheet metal part. Just taking a look at the time here, I'm gonna go to one more thing that I think you'll really like. So PTC's made a pretty big investment over the past couple of years with IoT and then also with augmented reality. So what we've done in Creo 4, starting in the M10 build, is we've actually added the ability to create augmented object with parametric. So what I can do is, if you have any model up on screen and you want to say to yourself, you know, this robot's nice, but I'm kind of curious how it looks like in 3D space. You know, a robot's kind of an odd idea. Maybe I just want to see the scale compared to, you know, my height. But if you're working with machinery and you want to see what that machine looks like on the shop floor, you're not going to wait for it to be manufactured to go see how it's going to fit between 2 other components. You'd like to augment that beforehand, right, during the design process. So augmented reality is a really big key thing. And what we did is we've added the ability to speed up that up within Creo. So a thing mark is what PTC currently uses as a way to identify the object. So a thing mark is something that you would scan using a free app that you can download on the Apple iStore or the Android market, called ThingWorks View or Vuforia View, and that allows you to scan thing marks and pull up related experiences. So I can add this thing mark directly to any model that I have open. And this is all free out of the box, just comes with Creo now. So maybe as a tabletop design here, I want to add this thing mark below. Or if I'm working on a model, say I actually have this robot built out, and I just want to take a look at some aspects of it, I could place this right on the model as well. So maybe I just want to augment certain aspects. Maybe the arm is something new, and we just have the body already built. We want to see how that arm looks. So I can place the thing mark, I can scale it for proportions, I can move that distance around how I'd like, and I can accept that off. From there, what I can do is I can publish this experience. So I want to see this model in real space. I want to augment it. I need to publish that up to a server. So PTC has servers, and what you do is when you hit publish, it's going to ask you for the model name, select the thing mark, and what quality you would like that to be. And then when you hit OK, it's going to ask for a login. And that login is just your PTC login that you would use for your e-support or anything like that. And PTC will host up to 5 models for you. If you create a 6 and publish it, it will just kick off the first one. So you can always have 5 published as a one thing mark. And then you can print that thing mark out and view it. If you want to share it, it'll actually auto-generate an email for you. So you can send it to a colleague and say, hey, take a look at this robot I just built. And what we can see is I actually just took a picture before this of that robot. So here's the thing mark I printed out. And there's the robot augmented on top of my laptop being displayed through an iPad I'm using. So that's augmented reality. We've made a big investment in that. You can take that further with ThingWorks Studio and actually add in the animations. So if I wanted, say, the robot arm to start moving or picking something up, or if I want to tie that to sensor data, now we're talking about a digital twin, I want to feed sensor data in and get input. You can do that with ThingWorks Studio. But if I just want to see this robot, I want to use it as part of our design process. If I want to see how it's going to fit in 3D space, or I have a meeting I got to go to talk about a design review, let's augment this onto the table and take a look around it. You can do that directly from Creo Parametric today. So Rob, with that, I think I'm going to pause there. I think we're just about out of time there. So I guess I'll pass it back over to you.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff within the latest release of Creo. So if there's any questions at this time, I don't see any loaded into the dashboard. I think I need to make myself the presenter.
There you go. Yep.
I got it now. So there are no questions typed in at this time. But if you have any, type them in. But if you have any questions afterwards, or if you want to see something, if you want to see more of a specific demo of Creo 3 or Creo 4, contact us and we can give you a demo based on what your needs specifically are. So I guess we did a good job because there are no questions. That's usually a good sign of a thorough webinar. So anyway, I want to thank you, Andrew, for being on today, and everybody have a great holiday weekend. And you'll be getting an email from us soon on our next webinar for next Friday. The topic yet to be determined, but you guys will get an invite real soon. So once again, Andrew, thank you, and thank you everybody for being on. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Take care.